Well, Chicago just had a big re-release in the form of the Hidden Gems event that I am recording this just after it's finished. In fact, technically it's still going on. There's still plenty of unminted properties in Chicago following this event. There's actually some really good unminted properties still in Chicago. So if you've got some UPIX to spare, I'd absolutely recommend heading on down to Chicago and seeing what you can grab. Before I go any further in this video, I'd like to give a shout out to my executive level channel members, Bad Frog, Monopoly Mike, Matrigno and Matsuda R. Thank you very much for your continued support of the channel. And I'd like to give a special shout out to the sponsor of this video, House of Spark. I've spoken about House of Spark on the channel before. I'm a huge fan of what they do. Simply put, they are a Spark exchange run via Discord. It's all completely automated, and it's honestly incredible the technology that they've got to make your Spark renting or leasing experience as smooth as possible. And I thought that looped in really well with this episode because some of the properties that I managed to grab in Chicago were in Portage Park. I thought, what better way to celebrate my acquisition of a bunch of Portage Park properties than to use House of Spark to develop one of them. All you've got to do to rent your Spark, and it's a fantastic time to be renting Spark, of course, because the prices are so low. You've just got to go on this price overview here. Now that I've got this loaded up, it looks like if I'm paying about, you can go as low as 27 UPIX an hour, but you can't guarantee that people are actually going to stake at that amount. I'm going to go for 35 UPIX an hour. That sounds about fair. So for a small townhouse, that is 39,000 UPIX. So now I've determined the total cost of my build. I'm going to go to deposit. You can either use an instant deposit to get your UPIX in your House of Spark account. You can do a direct UPIX transfer to Kebig, or you can use a burner property. So there's lots of options there. I've already got my UPIX in my House of Spark account from when I've previously dealt with House of Spark. So let's move on to step number 3, which is request building. Here we go. And I always forget this, but of course you have to actually start the construction before you can request people come and add on to it. So let me quickly do that. I'm going to build it on one of my smaller Portage Park properties. That's a tongue twister. Portage Park Properties. I'm going to build a small townhouse here. Whew, it said it didn't fit, but it just barely fits. So I'm going to put that right up against the street, if I could just about get it in. Looking good. And actually, I found this out the other day. Portage Park has the same colour scheme going on as the Holliswood node. And this is a good time to shout out that House of Spark has a special pricing for people who are building in Holliswood. You can claim back 3% of your building costs from House of Spark. If you just let them know that your contract is for Holliswood, they will pay you back 3% in your House of Spark account, which is a crazy deal when you consider how cheap it is to rent right now, plus the fact that I'm giving away direct incentives to build in Holliswood too. So don't forget, if you are building in Holliswood, I absolutely encourage you to get in on that and use House of Spark for that. Alright, so now that we've got that constructing, let's go back to the House of Spark request form. So I've typed in request building, the address is 5308, the structure is a small townhouse, and the price, let's go for 40 UPIX per hour. That's a little bit ahead of the current market rate, but that means that it should be built super quickly. When you submit a property for building via House of Spark, you get your own Discord channel created just for your project, so you can track how it's coming along and who's staking on it and all of that. Notice I haven't had to speak to a single person as part of this. Already, something has just come in. Somebody's staked 0.01 Spark on it. I guarantee you that throughout the course of this video, this is going to have a lot more staked on it. So I want to say thank you, House of Spark, for sponsoring this video. And yeah, I encourage people to use it. It is literally as simple as 1, 2, 3. I've shown you the entire process. You join Discord, link for that in the description. Check the price. deposit your UPIX into your House of Spark account or transfer it directly or whatever. Then just type in a simple bot command and bam, people are staking on your property. Take advantage of how cheap the Spark rental market is right now. And yeah, get building like I am. Let's chat about the event that's currently going on in Chicago, the Hidden Gems event. For those of you who aren't aware, what's basically happened is that 27,000 properties that weren't even on the map before have just come into Chicago and they've all unlocked. There's stuff which is in collections, even rare and ultra rare collections, which is pretty insane. And yeah, just thousands of properties all over the map. As you can see, I've got quite a few properties in Chicago. It is by far my most covered area. I've tried to make a treasure map, even though I don't treasure hunt as much as I should, although I really want to get back into that. I'd love to hear in the comments how you found this event, but just going through my personal experience, I had a bit of bad luck actually. I've never had this before during a city release. But I had my block explorer drifting across loop. I was looking at some nice cheap loops. I think they were down here, and yeah, I was kind of moving the cursor around as is tradition during a city release. For those of you who aren't aware, if you are waiting for a city release to open and for the properties to unlock, you should be constantly scrolling your cursor around like this. That sends updates to the server, and it basically means that when the properties are unlocked, they should appear right away on your screen when they are unlocked. But if you just kind of wait there, it can take a few extra seconds for that to come across on your end. And obviously, if you're in a really high demand bit, like cheap properties in loop, yeah, it's going to be too late. And that's exactly what happened to me. Even though I was moving my cursor around, I don't know if this was an issue that other people faced. About 30 seconds after it was supposed to open, all of the properties just went blue. So, not sure what happens there. Hopefully that's not something that happens to me again, because that was kind of unfortunate. But yeah, I noticed pretty quickly that all of the cheap loops had gone. So I went to my backup plan, and I wasn't really interested in any other collections. The mint prices were obviously very high, and I'm trying to save money for Vegas. We're assuming it's Vegas that's coming up, and all of the mint prices had been adjusted based on collection status and how expensive the properties were previously in that neighborhood. But what I thought was there might be some really good opportunities in Portage Park, because that is a node that you know, is obviously getting a lot of hype for good reason. It's pretty consistently been the #1 most staked neighborhood in terms of Spark, although I have to give a quick shout out to the Holliswood guys, because the other day we've actually surpassed Portage Park. I don't know if that's still the case, but when I last looked, we were the #1 most staked neighborhood, which is crazy. So congratulations all the people staking in Holliswood right now. That is quite a claim to fame. But you can see that people have been really building a lot in Portage Park, and I had a few properties there here and there, especially towards the south of the neighborhood, which is not quite as well developed. But I've been looking up, and I've been getting particularly excited about racing. And I remember looking up the Portage Park proposed racetrack, and a lot of it is kind of centered around the park, which makes sense, right? It's quite an eye-catching area. So when I noticed that there were some properties available kind of on this Irving Park Road, that's where the racetrack is going to go along. So I'm absolutely thrilled that I managed to get some properties along here. Eventually, of course, the plan is that we'll be able to advertise on our properties along here. The sky's the limit, honestly. So the fact that such an iconic racetrack is going to be running right past these properties that I managed to grab, that is really cool for me. Yeah, I was just kind of jumping around Portage Park looking for unlocked properties. I saw this whole row of them down here. So I just managed to grab a bunch of them. It's kind of a less developed part of the neighborhood, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're in Portage Park, that's a win. So maybe I'll flip some of those, maybe I'll hold on to all of them. I think this kind of neighborhood is probably only going to increase in value in the future. Obviously nothing is guaranteed in Upland, the whole thing could collapse overnight, but if I had to put my betting chips somewhere, it'd be on places where you've got a really strong community kind of forming around a single purpose, and Portage Park is absolutely all about that in Chicago. There's been a lot of hot takes regarding this event in general. Is it right that, you know, months after a city has been fully minted out, Upland can go, oh, by the way, there's thousands of properties that we never unlocked for some reason, and here they are. You know, I know that some people, especially in Greektown, were particularly upset about it because it's a neighborhood that was pretty much entirely off the market. The only properties that were available in Greektown were like 10 million UPIX, so basically unobtainable, the entire thing. But Greektown, even though it's such a small area, I'm actually scrolling across it right now, this area had 30 new properties added into it, and I'm assuming they've all been minted. Yeah, I mean, look at how small this area is, and then realise that 30 properties were added in here. So this was an absolutely tiny neighbourhood before. I'm actually curious to see if it's impacted the price at all. Has Greektown sort of lost its status as like completely unobtainable, or has that all been locked up again? Let's have a look. Yeah, let's say for sale. Sale price. Let's have a look. This is live research. So actually, I think the answer is yes. So congratulations for people who managed to get in on that. It could be that some people managed to mint a few, and they're just holding and waiting. They're like, I won't sell it until I really need the money, because clearly there's a small number of extremely dedicated players who are pretty much able to pay whatever is necessary to keep Greektown like the most exclusive neighborhood in the entire Upland metaverse. I think it's definitely up there. So congratulations to anybody who was able to grab anything in there. Going back to my previous point, I'm not super upset or thrilled really that this kind of event takes place. I think it's really cool that people can have a second chance at minting stuff in previously locked out neighborhoods like Loop. In fact, I almost guarantee you there's still some unminted properties in Loop, even though it's an exclusive collection in Chicago, purely because some of the properties over here are absolutely massive, and the mint prices were like, I think I saw one of like 7 million UPIX. So if you don't have millions and millions of UPIX to spend, don't expect to be able to grab anything in Loop or any of the exclusive neighborhoods for that matter. There were some semi-affordable ones which I had my eye on, but as I mentioned earlier, they disappeared pretty quickly, so never mind. But yeah, there's absolutely some really good deals if you're jumping around. If you're into marked properties, you know, properties which have like a little bit of text above them, there's some really nice ones still available. There's some big properties available in Wrigley Park. I know that Wrigley Park is a place where there's a bit of an up-and-coming node, and I'm not sure if this was the case before, but Wrigley Field itself is now in the game. Was that always there? I'm not sure if this is like a new landmark or something. Obviously, you can't mint it right now, but that is obviously going to be quite valuable when it inevitably goes up for auction. But yeah, if I zoom in down here, I managed to grab this property here called the Friendly Tavern. And it's not in a collection, it's not even in Portage Park, but I'm so thrilled about it because I'd love... Obviously, there's going to be cafes coming into the game at some point, and I would love to be able to set up some kind of community hub in the Friendly Tavern. I mean, come on, that's like one of the coolest names for a cafe. And that was like 10-20 minutes after all of the properties unlocked. So if you scroll around, there are loads of marked properties that still haven't been minted, and some of them are actually a reasonable size, like Jim's Plaza. If you're a guy called Jim, or your username has Jim in it, like, come on, that seems like the obvious place to host some kind of metaverse event. You've got to be thinking about the future in Upland. You can't just look at what the game currently is. You've got to think about what we know is coming into the game in the future and kind of try to plan around that. And that's what I was doing in Portage Park, trying to focus on properties that are along the racetrack, because I know that's something that's coming into the game, and I don't think that's fully priced in yet. Look at this, we've got Lem's Barbecue down here. It's not taking me long to scroll around and find. There's schools, there is so much stuff around here that is all marked and unminted. So if you want to speculate on that, if you want to find an eye-catching place to host a meta venture in the future, then this is the best opportunity you're going to get in Chicago. I try to always have a plan for why I'm buying a property, so most of these here were purely for treasure hunting, but at the moment I'm going around and I'm thinking, yeah, is there a place I want to set up a meta venture shop, or a a manufacturing plant, or a cafe, or anything like that? So have a think about the roadmap, have a think about the features that are coming to Upland over the coming months or even the next year, and just think, these properties, they're not going to be around forever. Where do I want to set up these meta businesses? And that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm doing it right now. I hope you managed to grab some really cool stuff in Chicago and you found this analysis quite useful. Before I wrap up, I want to give a quick shout out to my executive and director level channel members, Matrigno, Bad Frog, Monopoly Mike, Matsuda R, and Tujar Zing. Thank you so much for your support, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.